What's up, family? Welcome to Speak. There is no bigger story right now in sports than that of the NFL Draft. We are 1 day away from your favorite team changing the trajectory of their future and winning a Super Bowl, unless your favorite team, well, they're the Chiefs. They always win. But how about the Dallas Cowboys? Because Jerry Jones, he had a very interesting quote within the last 24 hours. He said this about his quarterback situation. Look, we want Dak Prescott. That's that. I give Mike McCarthy a lot of credit for Prescott's improvement last season. That improvement, it demonstrated to me there's more as far as ultimately winning what we're trying to do here. So the question is simple. The Dallas Cowboys, they have a first-round pick, but how in the world should they utilize it? It's the last year of Dak Prescott's deal. It does not get any bigger in sports than the conversation we are about to have. So if you thought about changing the channel, think again. Let's head to the desk. 2-5. Yo, it's good to see you, big dog. It's always good to see you, more today than most days, but it's always good to see you.
More today? I'm around.
That's Eagles' all-time rushing leader, LeSean Shady McCoy on the far end. That is James Jones. To his right, it is Joy Taylor. Let's get right to it. It's draft season. It's almost draft day. Shady McCoy, this is the question that everybody wants to know the answer to, particularly Cowboys fans. Should the Cowboys draft Dak Prescott's replacement?
You mean right now?
Yes, sir.
Should have been did that.
Ooh.
I mean, same results, right? Great regular season. This year is even greater. Give him credit for that, but it's the same thing. They do well, and then they get to the postseason, and he shows up. Pick. So if you're asking me, I would definitely get his replacement. And even if it's not a first rounder, even a second rounder. I mean, the Cowboys showed you before that, hey, we get you a franchise quarterback, not in the first or second round. We can go later than that. And they did it with Tony Romo, and they did it with Dak Prescott. I just think like it's time. Every good thing comes to an end. I think my dad told me that. Anyway, Dak has done a good thing for the Cowboys, right? His time is up. It's the reason why they ain't paid him yet. What quarterback that has a second MVP running and an all-pro and don't get a contract extension, right? That'll never happen.
Good question.
But when you have other great players that are greater than you on your team that you got to go out there and pay, and the main focus is always the quarterback, but every time it gets into the postseason, he shows up in a negative way. So if you're asking me, man, hey, man. Dak, your time is up.
Draft a quarterback, James Jones. Should the Cowboys do it? Should they draft his replacement?
Not in the first round. We're talking first round?
Anytime. Any round. Should they draft his replacement?
No. Dak Prescott is going to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys we know this season.
Yes, sir.
You have a chance to compete at a high level this season. Go get you a player that's going to contribute this season and help your team win. We talk about it all the time. The Dallas Cowboys has had really good quarterbacks over the last couple decades in the National Football League, from Tony Romo to Dak Prescott, and they still have not gotten over the hump. Go out there and get you a really good player in the first round, get you some more good players in the second and third round to build up this roster. You need linemen. You need a third receiver. Who knows what's going to happen with CeeDee Lamb? You might have to take one of these receivers in the first round, and CeeDee Lamb over here telling you he's going to hold out, or you're going to have to pay him. So it's just some spots on their team that they need to fill. And right now, as we sit here at this desk right now, quarterback is not one of them. This is an all-pro quarterback. Anybody will take an all-pro quarterback on your team, and we're talking about drafting a quarterback for your replacement. I say no. Get those other pieces that you need to help your roster go compete and try to get over the hump this season.
Joy Taylor, what do you say? We heard James say no.
I mean, based off of what the Cowboys are doing, yes, they should draft his replacement. But based off of what they're saying, they should not draft his replacement. So what are y'all talking about? Because I really like to pay attention to what people do. That's more important to me. People say a lot, blah, 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 blah. What do you actually do? Well, what the Cowboys are doing is not extending Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Right? He's coming off of an all-pro season, was runner-up in MVP, had the best year of his career. It would be a no-brainer, as he said, we want Dak, we don't have to blink an eye, don't have to blink an eye. Where's the extension? Where's the conversations? Where's the contract then? What you're doing is not matching what you're saying. So based off of what they're doing, yes, they should draft his replacement, because what you're doing is illustrating that you are planning on moving on from Dak Prescott, at best putting yourself in a situation where you're going to have to overpay or pay what the market is demanding for Dak Prescott, because he will be a free agent after this year, based off of what you're doing. So I'm confused. Could someone explain to me what the Cowboys' plan is? Because what they're saying is not matching what they're doing.
Maybe their plan is the third overall pick they traded for.
Trey Lance?
Trey Lance?
I'm just saying, we don't know how he's developing. He has not played. You're sitting over here telling us that you're not going to extend Dak Prescott. Is the young fella showing you something? That's the only thing I could go to, because I can't see them drafting a quarterback in the first round. And then when you say replacement, it's not a lot of replacements that come in there in the second and third and fourth round, really, unless the quarterback in front of you gets hurt or he's just absolutely terrible.
James, that's where I'm at with it. The Cowboys, if they're going to draft as replacement, you got to do it in the first round. What I've learned about the NFL more now than ever, you can't cheat the system. Cowboys been trying to cheat the system the last 15 years. Tony Romo, undrafted. Dak Prescott, fourth-round pick. But if you look at the quarterbacks who win Super Bowls more often than not, you have Patrick Mahomes, first-round pick. You have Matthew Stafford, first-round pick. Joe Burrow went first-round pick. Jalen Hurts went high second-round pick, but we all know how good that roster was. I love Brock Purdy more than anybody likely on national television. But we know how good that San Francisco 49ers roster is. I don't think you can cheat the NFL anymore. There are not the days in my mind of finding quarterbacks late, and those days never really existed. Right now, the Joe Burrows of the world are great, #1 overall. The Patrick Mahomes, top 10, top 11. The Josh Allens, I believe he was top 10 as well. The Lamar Jackson's first-round picks. Great quarterbacks cost you a great fortune. So the Cowboys aren't going to be able to cheat the system if they think they can. James, you said something interesting. You said help the roster out. I want to agree with you, but the roster isn't what's keeping the Cowboys from winning the big games. Dak Prescott last year in the playoffs. This is objective. This is not my subjective opinion. This is not a hit job on Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott versus the San Francisco 49ers. If you want to add nuance and context, you could say that Tony Pollard got hurt, I think, in the first or second quarter of that game. Dak Prescott the year before. You don't have to blame that on him, though I would have liked him to slide sooner, spike the ball so you have a chance to win that game, or at least have a chance at the end zone. So Dak Prescott has been what's kept the Cowboys from winning a game versus the Packers. It wasn't a roster issue. It was a quarterback issue. I would address that issue.
So really quick, you're the Dallas Cowboys right now, and you're telling me you address the quarterback issue at, what, 23, 24?
Yeah.
Who you getting? So now you're saying, as a Dallas Cowboys team, we're finna trade a bunch of picks to move up?
No, I wouldn't. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I would see how it goes. That's a phenomenal point. I'm not trading into the top 4 or the top 3 to try to get Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I am not doing that. But if in the first round, a first-round quarterback talent presents itself, a Michael Penix. If you believe J.J. McCarthy is a first-round talent, I don't. If in the first round, a first-round quarterback presents itself, you have to take that. Because, James, I can't do what you're suggesting. I can't improve the roster. So it had 8 All-Pros. The roster's not getting much better.
But that's last year, though. We're talking about this year and what they need this year, right? You lose Tony Pollard, you're going to need a running back.
Yes, sir.
You lose Gallup, you're going to need a #3 receiver.
Yes, sir.
You need some work on the offensive line.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of pieces to where you need help. Not saying they don't have a lot of talent, but it's not the same exact team as last year rolling over. But you got to fill these spots.
You're right there. He's right there, 2-5. I believe he's right there, Joy. But where I'm at is, say you fill those spots as well as you filled them last year. Because last year, your left tackle was Tyron Smith, who'll go into the Hall of Fame. So that spot. Last year, your center was Tyler Biadasz. He's now with the Washington Commanders. Assume you fill those spots as well as you did last year. You still ended up getting blown out by your Green Bay Packers at home with a younger head coach, a younger quarterback, a younger team, and a worse team that had less to play for. So even if you fill those spots, that is not the answer.
So you're basically saying don't win this year, draft a quarterback that's not going to play?
What I'm saying is they have a really, really, really good roster, right? Every team you play for or in the NFL, there's going to be some spots that they're going to have full. That's how it works, right? But the problem is we want to sit up here and act like they need so much help. Quarterbacks would die to play for that team. Quarterbacks would die to play for that team, James, right? And then when you look at the Cowboys, it's like, yo, that's the best situation for a young quarterback to go to and play for. If you don't believe me, look at Brock Purdy. As much as you want to say this, that, and the third, right? Yo, him playing for that team, he doesn't have to be special all the time. That's what it is. Just don't lose it. So if you're talking about getting a replacement, I think this would be a perfect time because they have the roster for that.
I mean, they spent an NFL low $13.7 million in free agency. They lost a bunch of players, 8 players in free agency. That's tied for the 3rd most ever in a single offseason for the Cowboys. This isn't going to exactly be the same roster. They do have things they need to fill, but they are always goodish, great when it comes to the roster, and they always seem to fall short at the quarterback position. But waiting to see what happens with a quarterback seems like a kind of iffy plan. That's a little wishy-washy for me.
That's fair.
I hear you, but with the amount of quarterbacks that we are estimating will go high in this draft, it's likely that someone available at that spot wouldn't be someone that you would draft in the first round. You might wait on. Is that the right choice when you have all these roster spots? I don't know. But that also leads me to my original point is what is the plan? Because you're saying that you want Dak Prescott, but you're not renewing Dak Prescott. If you let Dak Prescott play on this, by the way, Dak Prescott might not, because as we had a very heated discussion earlier this week, Dak might just be the bad guy and force his way into an extension, right? Like, which is what we are anticipating he's probably going to do, because he's being chill now, but he might not be closer to the start of the season. So then he gets an extension. So it just doesn't seem like they really know what they want to do. They'd like to move on from Dak Prescott, perhaps. He has a no-trade clause. They're not able to do that. They don't really they're not in a position to have a replacement. But here's the thing with the Cowboys in the draft. They're never going to be at the top of the draft.
Correct.
So at what point do you actually, if you wanted to get a first-round player, you would eventually have to use picks to move up and get a quarterback if you wanted to take a quarterback in the first round, because they're always going to be picking around this area.
Let me ask you a question. So, because y'all keep talking about the roster, who did they lose that was so important? Tyron Smith? Because he's always hurt. Okay, he's always hurt.
Pollard wasn't good this year.
Okay.
I can't count him.
But I'm just saying.
It's running backs. I think in football, right? This is not my opinion, but most people would say that the easiest position on the offense replaces the running backs.
And running backs.
No, not receivers. They said running backs. That's why they get paid the least, right? Okay. Who else? I'm just trying to figure out who else they
They
got.
lost their center. They lost their tackle.
Center's a good one, right? Yeah. I would take that because he was solid, right?
Yeah.
Against the offensive captain on the line, right? But then, like, the guard, they lost the guard.
Nah, Tyron and Biotis.
Come on, bro. So what? Gallup?
I'm not counting.
I mean, I'm still looking for him, right? So when we say these things, like, who they really losing? They got that core there, though, right? And if you had to plug in some pieces, it's easier to plug in them pieces.
I don't think that their roster is significantly worse. The offensive line is concerning, especially since they didn't do much in free agency. It's just a matter of what is the future of this team. What is the future is my question. Because what you're saying to us in your action is that you don't think Dak Prescott is the future. We would never be having this conversation about a quarterback who just came off of a season as a runner-up to MVP and an all-pro season, regular season. We would not be having this conversation about any other quarterback. So you're saying in your inaction that you do not think Dak Prescott is the future. But then you're saying that he is the future. But then we might see in the draft that they do not take a quarterback, saying that Dak Prescott is the future.
I don't think they will. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, and my thing is a plan is we're going to trade up and try to get the guy that we really are in love with.
There's no way they'll do that.
That's what I'm saying. So a plan is not, hey, man, we're going to sit down here at 23. Is that where they're picking, 23, 24? And we're going to wait and see if one of these dudes fall into our lap?
I would say
that cannot be the
plan.
James,
to me, the Cowboys are in a really good position because they don't need to replace Dak Prescott. But I believe if they have the luxury to do so, do so. They're in a really good position because the needs that they have on their roster are needs you can typically fill outside of that tackle position in the third or fourth round. With all due respect to the running back to my right and the linebacker that I am, you can find really good running backs in the third and fourth round. And you can find a third-team receiver in the sixth round, if we're being honest. That's a special teams player that needs to go for 600 yards in a game. You can find him late. So if you get the tackle in the first round, great. If you get the center in the first round, great. But the Cowboys, to me, are in a great position because if there is a quarterback there that you like, and usually quarterbacks do fall. I could see one or two falling, really one falling. If there's a quarterback there that you like, you take him. You replace Dak eventually. If there's not, you draft the tackle, you keep it pushing.
Not if they're trying to compete for a Super Bowl. I don't think they are in a good position.
You saying you trade up?
I'm saying, do we think that this team, as it is currently constructed with the additions that we know that they will get in the draft, they will draft a receiver, they will draft a running back, they will draft an offensive lineman, right? Linebacker. We think they're any closer to competing for a Super Bowl than they were last year? Or are they just about the same?
I don't.
So what would they need to do as an organization for any of us to be moved to thinking that they're capable of competing for a championship, or at least that they are trying to compete for a championship?
There's really no right answer. You know why? Because if you pay Dak, right, you know the results.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
So what I'm saying is you basically paying a lot of money to get the same results. So when you get a young quarterback, they may develop, maybe it could be better than that.
But that's what I'm saying.
But you don't know the results.
But that's better
but
than
you
knowing.
know the results, no question. That's why I'm like,
that's what I'm saying is like,
get him out of there.
Is like what I don't think they're in a great position because unless somebody falls to them that happens to be great, but this is counting on a lot of other people making choices that are out of your control. Outside of that, which isn't really a strategy, which would be more of a surprise, that's my point, that you are in this sort of limbo space that you will always be in because Dak is good enough to keep you drafting at 24 every single year, and he's bad enough to keep you drafting at 24 every single year.
The reason, if I'm a Cowboys fan, I have some solace, and I'll say they're in a great position, great in quotes, because at a minimum, you run it back. At a minimum, you fill your left tackle spot in the first round. You fill your center spot in the third round, really probably the second round, because in my mind, the running backs aren't that great this year, not a great running back class. Fill your running back spot in the third or fourth round. Go get your Blake Corum. Then you fill that wide receiver spot either in free agency or in the draft. Running back. That's the team that you had last year. You running back. Tony Pollard, he was not special last year. Michael Gallup, he was not special last year. Tyron Smith hasn't been special in a couple years. He's great, but he hasn't been special in a couple years, and I believe Tyler Biadasz will be replaced. Running back. You win 12 games again, Joy, you go to the playoffs, you lose in the playoffs, you're fine. But if for some reason you find you a quarterback, like Lamar, like the Ravens drafted Lamar when they had Flacco, like the Chiefs drafted Mahomes when they had Alex, like the Packers drafted Love when they had Rodgers, like the Chargers drafted Herbert when they had Tyrod. You draft you a quarterback not intending to start him year one. The Chargers didn't. Like the Eagles drafted Jalen when you had Wentz. You shouldn't draft a quarterback when you needed quarterback. Noah didn't wait till it started raining to build the ark. Start building that joint before the drop hits. And then you good once Dak does move on in a year from now. That would be the best case scenario.
I would do that.
Me. That's the best case scenario.
And that's the thing it's all about. Is that the Cowboys plan? That's what it's all about. Like, we knew the Chargers plan. We need a quarterback. Yeah. Tyrod is not our... Like Joy said, you saying one thing, doing another. What's your plan? And your plan can't be like, I'm going to sit and wait and hope that one of these quarterbacks drop to us, because one of these quarterbacks that do drop to you could be a Zach Wilson.
But let's talk about your team real quick, and then we got to go to break.
And you got to pay people.
But real quick, James, let's talk about your team for a moment, the Packers.
Yes, surprised us all.
3-4 years ago. Jordan Love, like the Packers did trade up to get Love, but they traded up to get Love at the end of the first round. It wasn't like the Packers in that draft said, you know what, we're going to mortgage our future and draft Jordan Love in the top 10. Yeah. They said, you know what, there's a developing quarterback here. Let's trade up to get him at the end of the first. Yeah. That, to some degree, is what I'm suggesting the Cowboys do. If they view Bo Nix as a late first-round pick, maybe you trade back in the first round and you draft Bo Nix, and then you use the excess picks. That's what I'm suggesting the Cowboys do is make a move on a quarterback, but don't have to play him right away.
Yeah,
well, he's not any quarterback they draft, even if they draft him in the top 5.
Yeah, they're not paying him right now because Dak is going to be the starter this year regardless. I agree that they should draft a quarterback in development, but not in the late rounds, because to your point, that's what they always do. Like, if you're going to take a quarterback. Take a quarterback that can sit for a year, because that's what he's going to do regardless, and develop. But that has to be in the higher rounds.
Really good conversation.
He's going to get paid.
And Trey Lance no belief in Trey Lance?
I think we would be hearing some buzz. I think we'd be hearing some tremblings.
The buzz I heard when he was in San Fran, they said he was awful. Before he even played, I said, yo, I heard he's awful. From my sources.
I didn't even have to hear it. I saw it.
No belief.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.